We're gonna let it kind of load up here. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, and also stream on Expert CRE Secrets podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy is one of the best ways for you to exit highly appreciated businesses, real estate, cryptocurrency, defer millions of dollars of capital gains tax so you can create and preserve more wealth and help your friends, family, or clients do the same. Hey, my name is Brett Swartz, and I'm founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. And each and every episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial wealth, and sometimes building early stage minds in the world where they share their deal stories and secrets with us so we can create and preserve more wealth and unlock even more freedom for ourselves and our family and our clients or investors. And I'm excited today. In fact, our guest is out of the great state of Kentucky, and he's focused on helping individuals and companies build their companies. And in fact, we're going to be talking about building early stage prop tech and insurance tech, which is interesting because we've never had anyone like this on the show before. So I'm excited to dive into what all that particularly looks like. But our guest has a tremendous experience and background of helping people build massive companies. In fact, he's founded and co-founded several businesses across the InsurTech and PropTech aimed at providing condition assessment technologies and forensic services and so much more. Please welcome to the show, Lyle Donan. Lyle, how are we doing?
Very well. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, you bet. My story begins with a family business begun shortly after World War II that over a period of time migrated from doing design engineering work in everything from civil engineering and mining engineering and environmental engineering to investigating property damage. And the way that story began is that our customers, mining, specifically the mining industry, was dealing with litigation and claims coming from alleged damages from their mining activities. And they needed some third-party experts to help them investigate these property damages. So my grandfather, my father before me, were hired as expert witnesses to do investigations of property damage. As we did that work, our name got out purely organically, and insurance companies began calling us, asking us, hey, we heard that you guys, you engineers, can take a look at these buildings for us and tell us what went wrong. And we had a knack for that. That started in the 60s and 70s and then grew into the 80s. We also then diversified. People said, hey, this building caught on fire. Can you help us excavate the remnants of this damaged building and try to figure out where the fire started and what caused it? And we said, we're entrepreneurs. We said, sure, we'll give that a try. And that blossomed into a fire investigation business that was starting to mature in the 1990s. And so we went from mining engineering all the way into forensic engineering. And by 1999, we made the decision that the design part of the design engineering services we were offering were no longer where we wanted to be investing and spending our time. And so we decided to focus full time on doing what we now refer to as forensic investigations, forensic engineering, forensic fire investigations. My background, I joined the business in April of 2000. At that time, the company was quite small. I was the 20th employee. Had really a great amount of luck in regards to the timing that I came into the industry. I consider it by today's standards to be very immature. We've grown up a lot since then. But that was also a really great excuse to exercise an entrepreneur's muscle. And so we pushed to first just geographically expand the footprint of the business. It began in Kentucky and Southern Indiana, which is a great part of the country to be from. Our fees here were actually much less expensive compared to folks operating in Chicago and Atlanta. And so it was easier for us to push north and south. We did. And over time, we organically grew this business through simply the cash flows that it provided and expanded it geographically from the central part of the United States to all 50 states by the end of 2015. So far, so good. You got any questions on that? Makes sense?
Yeah, Lyle, that was amazing. What a background, what a history, and what a legacy with the family, man. It's incredible there. And by the way, you can learn more about Lyle Donan by going to roomandpillar.com. It's roomandpillar.com. That's spelled Donan for the last name. Kind of rhymes with Conan. So if you've seen that and you see Lyle with the sword dressed up in Halloween, be aware that that's where that's coming from. But all kidding aside, yeah, I think that's amazing. And we're going to tie all this into building early stage InsurTech and PropTech empires. In fact, Room and Pillar talks about maximizing value of the built world. This feels like it's almost like another part of the world that we're going to dive into for this episode for sure. But before we go all there, Lyle, I want to take one other step back. I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life, and the gifts have been given to us to be blessing and help to others. So I'm curious, go back to the earlier days, Lyle, before you're in the family business and doing all the things you're doing now. And what do you think, or what do you feel like, or what do you know are the strengths or gifts, maybe one or two that you've been given personally, and how does that help how you help and bless the company you're helping to run today and the people that you serve?
I don't know that there's a better gift than my professional Rolodex, but it doesn't come instantly. That's something that I've accrued over several decades, but it began at a very young age. And so one of the things about my professional story was our customers or property insurance carriers, and I began to care very deeply about the things that they care about. And so if you're looking at something called real estate, the portfolio of property, and then what I want to care about from an insurance company's perspective is, well, what's causing damage to that property? And then I go swimming very deeply into all the lanes of damage that can cause that we see frequently in property. And so then I'll go working with, for example, FEMA and ask them, hey, what are you seeing damage causing from? Fires, floods, earthquakes, other types of severe weather. I'll go work with departments of insurance and ask them, hey, you guys are the ones that are regulating the insurance market in the state. Where do you see damage coming from? And all these are just organically generating relationships. And so that then, builds a Rolodex. And so the best talent that I have today is just simply the network that I've been lucky enough to create over a couple of decades of doing what I do. And then I'm trying to take that network and leverage it to the advantage of other early stage businesses, CEOs and entrepreneurs, and help connect them to people that I think can accelerate and move their business faster.
Yeah, it really sounds like a deep care and connection with those that you served over the years as friends, and in serving them to help like Zig Ziglar said, help enough get people get what they want. You can have everything you want. And then on top of that, now then multiplying and leveraging those relationships to help and synergy for others in the network. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's fair. You bet.
Awesome. Great. Well, let's dive right into the topic at hand now, which is building early stage InsurTech and PropTech empire. So Lyle, what is the number one secret to doing just that?
Well, I think the biggest secret for this and my underlying thesis at Room and Pillar is that when I study the property insurance industry, and then I take a step back and I study the real estate industry, it is shockingly coincidental that you have many parallel workflows. So for example, in property insurance, if I'm going to look at selling an insurance policy to a property, I want to understand everything about that property so that I can understand and quantify its risk, which then in turn is a binary decision. Do I want this customer? Yes or no, based upon the risk of that asset. And then based upon that risk, it'll help me understand, well, how much should I charge in premium for an insurance policy for this? Very conventional insurance workflows. On the real estate side, if you are a owner and operator of real estate and you're considering buying another asset, you're doing much of the same thing. Hey, what's the condition of the roof? What's the flood risk of this property? What's the fire risk of this property? Is it sprinkled? Yes or no? What's the condition of the HVAC and the plumbing? All these are just diligence workflows that are eerily similar and consistent to the exact same workflows that are happening over in property insurance. The same is true for considering risk management. Hey, now I already own this building, or now I already insure this building. I care about the exact same thing, which is I don't want to have a claim. I don't want my building to flood or catch on fire or something else. So if you're a good owner and a good operator of real estate, you're constantly doing things to manage the risk and optimize the value of that investment for you. An insurance company is doing the exact same thing. They're hoping that you avoid a claim. They don't want you to file a claim. So a good insurance company wants to work with you to reduce the risks of the things that are inside your real estate. Okay, here's the thesis. Here's the aha. It is, wait a minute, if they're both doing the exact same thing, then what is the best of breed of solution that's happening over in real estate? And can I sell that? Can I introduce that solution over to an insurance audience and find immediate application, immediate growth, and a significant increase of the total addressable market? That's a really interesting opportunity. The same is true on the other side. One of the things that people that really don't know property insurance fail to understand is that most property insurance companies don't make very high margins. That's the exception, not the rule. The rule is these companies make incredibly low margins. So if they're making very low margins, then for sure, the products, the services, the solutions, AKA the vendors that they rely on to execute their businesses have to be super fast, super accurate, very efficient. Otherwise, they can't afford it. Okay, well, if I find the best technology, the best solution, the best vendor that's solving a really fundamental problem in insurance or insurance tech, InsurTech, then my inherent question is, can I take that business and introduce that business to real estate audiences and immediately find significant value in that diversification of the addressable market?
Absolutely incredible and insightful. And I want to dive even more to that. And we're talking with Lyle Donan, roomandpillar.com. So, okay, let me pull out a couple pieces that I wrote down here. So first of all, understanding and quantifying risk, right? Whether it be through property, property insurance, real estate industry, and then figuring out, do I want that risk and how to put a number on that risk, and then caring about how to mitigate that risk and optimizing the building and working. And so what you're saying is essentially you are underwriting risk, right? You're underwriting risk and you're figuring out ways to solve that with technology. Is that a fair summary?
That is certainly a key part of my work at Room and Pillar. Yeah. One of the things that I want to educate your audience is that across all real estate in the United States, we can think about risk in some very fundamental ways, which actually simplifies the whole story of risk and makes the conversation a lot easier. The largest and most frequent cause of loss of damage in the United States is wind and hail damage. It's not wildfires, it's not earthquakes, it's not floods, it's not tornadoes, it's wind and hail damage. So if I'm going to think about wind and hail damage, I care about roofing, I care about what's the exterior materials on a property. But those are fundamental things that I should really care about because that is the single largest category of risk to real estate in the US. The second leading cause of risk to real estate in the United States is, in the insurance jargon, a peril we're going to call non-weather interior water. If you're not from the insurance world, just call it interior water leaks, plumbing leaks. And these are ubiquitous regardless of where you live. So even if you live in a part of the country where there is no significant wind or hail risk, I'm pretty sure you still have a plumbing risk. And so again, that's a very simple way to think about the conversation of risk. And it's ubiquitous. It applies to literally everybody, whether you're a homeowner or you own a portfolio of real estate like a REIT, or you're an insurance company, you have a portfolio of properties that you insure. I mean, these are just underlying foundational conversations. Then we can focus on, well, okay, where do interior water losses come from? Where does plumbing leak? And so you can begin to refine or create a funnel and get more specific about each one of these conversations. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does. And let's maybe get practical here, right? Let's get like a practical application. Let's imagine I own an apartment complex and it's a 350 unit apartment complex. It's in California, right? It might be close to some fire stuff, right? And or it's in Florida and it might be subject to like flooding and certain things, right? Which I know those are the second, those aren't the number one. Wind and hail are number one, but just to make it really practical, what is Room and Pillar going to help that owner to do? Maybe give us like a case study to kind of bring this thing to life.
Yeah, you bet. All right, let's talk about plumbing, because regardless of geography, we hope that you've got potable water plumbing inside this property. You've got cold water in your walls and you've got hot water in your walls. So if you own, for example, an apartment building, I don't know, you could have a boiler supplying hot water throughout this structure. You could have water heaters in each individual unit. Regardless, that water heater and all of the appliances that are connected to your cold and hot water plumbing inside that unit, those are incredibly higher risk parts of the asset itself. And so if you want to just have a conversation about, well, forget geography, I own real estate, therefore I have plumbing inside my property, I have pressurized water inside the walls, the water supply lines, and the appliances that my occupant is using every single day, great. Let's do this. Let's focus on your water heater, your dishwasher, your HVAC system, a clothes washer, a clothes dryer, and a refrigerator and an ice maker. Because statistically, those are the products inside of the property that are going to fail. And if they fail, they may fail belligerently, which means they're going to fail and cause property damage. Now, we don't want that. That's the worst case scenario, is that they fail and they flood a home. But we can take steps to collect data, not on the entire interior of a house. That's exhaustive. It's really time consuming. It's horribly inefficient. Don't do that. I don't suggest you should. But if you really want to get strategic about understanding the risk of something like interior water inside a property, then you should send somebody around, whether it's the occupant or somebody else or you, to go around and capture the images using a smartphone of what I'll refer to as the asset tags. In other words, the manufacturer's tag, the manufacturer sticker, their plate on all of those core assets inside of this real estate. Okay, now you're generating structured data. Not just structured data on the house or on the apartment, but structured data on the assets within it. And this becomes really useful for all kinds of reasons. Not just do I want to understand, hey, is this dishwasher recalled? Is this dishwasher beyond its estimated useful life? Water heaters are one of the consistently biggest risks across all real estate. And it's not that people don't make good water heaters. I would never say that. That's not what I'm suggesting. It's that people don't replace a water heater until it leaks or until it doesn't produce hot water. Either way, those are the only call to action to say, I'm going to go replace my water heater. That thing's a ticking time bomb. And so it's the perfect example of a product that you should be monitoring how old it is, because the data on estimated useful life for a water heater is incredibly clear. So now you have the opportunity to say, hey, this water heater is too old. I'm going to go ahead and do what I know is in my own best interest. I'm going to replace it, even though it still makes hot water. Or if you're a really smart owner of apartments or condominiums, and you know that that unit is going to turn over when one tenant leaves and another tenant's going to come in, well, that's the ideal time to replace a water tank. It's not disruptive and it's cheap. Do it then. So those are simple, very simple use cases. And one of the businesses that we support at Room and Pillar, that if your audience really wants to double click into to understand, well, like, how do I do this? Where is that technology? It's a company called Source 7. And Source 7 is not only a Room and Pillar investment, but it's one of those assets that at Room and Pillar, I'm pushing into other businesses, not only within the Room and Pillar portfolio, but across InsurTech and PropTech. Because I don't think it's unique that people have dishwashers. It's not unique that we have ice makers inside of real estate or clothes washers and dryers. These are so common. It's like, shouldn't everybody know if your ice maker has been recalled? And yet no one does know, because there's no data correlation between the consumer and the manufacturer. So if the manufacturer declares a recall, who are they going to tell? They don't even have your contact information. So Brett, I hope those are some very simple use cases. We can double click in there in any way you want to.
Yeah, I love that. No, I think this is great. It's almost like it feels like it's budgeting for the property assets in a way that helps you to organize it, and to work with, Source 7, right? As the individual, as the property owner, and also just budgeting for and de-risking the property with like water heaters. That you're right, because most people are not going to replace it until the water heater stops or starts to leak or whatever. And you're going, it's like your tires that you're driving on your car. Like, yeah, you can probably keep driving, but those things are bare and those things are beyond their useful life. You're in danger, right? But it's that connection emotionally to, like, budget for these things and think about them when you're driving. You can probably kind of start to feel it. I just replaced my tires, by the way, and I was like, man, the car's kind of shaking. Like, it was just weird. I was like, I wonder if I need to get a new car. Like, I felt like something might be wrong. And I was like, and then I went and I got my tires checked. Like, you need to replace your tires. I'm like, oh shoot, yeah, and I did. And then all of a sudden, everything is just riding smooth again. And so it's connecting that property, budgeting for those assets to make sure that you're not gonna, that tire is gonna blow, and in this scenario, that water heater is gonna blow, and it's gonna cause, like you said, belligerent damage to the assets. Is that a fair summary, Lyle?
That's a totally fair summary. It's amazing, Brett, how many people, how many entities have purchased real estate assets, portfolios of real estate assets. And yet when I ask them, how many water heaters do you own? How many microwaves do you own, or dishwashers do you own? They just simply answer the question, well, this is the number of units that I have, and therefore that's the answer of the number of dishwashers. I'm like, great. Do you know anything about how old they are? Do you know anything about when they're expected to fail? Do you know which ones you wish to keep when they are broken so that you want to make a repair to it versus, you know what, that one's too old, I'm going to go ahead and replace it? Because I'm throwing my money away if I make a repair on this dishwasher.
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, that's the number one question you would ask for, a multifamily broker by trade where I started out. And we would say, how many, first of all, does it have individual hot water heaters, right? Number two, if it does, how many have been replaced, and then number three, when were they last replaced? And sometimes you talk to someone like, I haven't replaced any of them. And they've owned them for, for property for 10 plus years. You're like, okay, this is just a matter of, it's a ticking time bomb before I have to turn all of these water heaters over, or they're already failing, right? And you need to look at this, right? You just cannot buy it based upon, people ask about the roof. That's a pretty common one, right? But even like siding, right? Or the stucco exterior versus T111 siding versus, the dry rot. Was the layer put over the top of the dry rot? I mean, there's so much there that if you're not doing the due diligence, it's not going away when you buy it, and you're going to have to, repair this thing, and it can be detrimental. And then let alone the termites that get into it, and the wood, the pests that get into it. And oh my goodness, it just kind of keeps going. It can be a complete nightmare. You've got to be underwriting and looking at the data and having folks like Room and Pillar to help you do this in a systematic, thoughtful, deliberate way. Is that a fair summary, Lyle?
It's a totally fair summary. I'm going to leave you with one other story here about a great opportunity that Room and Pillar loves to celebrate, which is insurance claims. And so when a claim happens, and let's say that it's an interior water loss, chances are it's going to be a covered loss. So there's not going to be any dispute over is it covered or not. The investigation is going to be, hey, where did the water come from? How bad is the damage? How do I quickly and efficiently write an estimate and cut you a check to pay you for the damages that you've suffered, and then help you in any way I can restore the property back to its pre-loss condition? That's a great story. However, there's a hidden little nugget in that story, because depending upon where the water came from, let's go back to this really, really simple use case of a dishwasher. If you use data coming from a product like Source 7, for example, you take a photograph of that dishwasher asset tag, they can instantly extract the data off that image and return back to you everything you ever wanted to know about that dishwasher, including what's the likelihood that if you went after the manufacturer of the dishwasher and made a claim against them, that you'd be able to recover some of the money that you paid to your customer, the insured, who suffered this property damage because their dishwasher failed. That's a whole hidden industry called subrogation. And I celebrate subrogation. Not only is it informing the manufacturer that, hey, we may have a problem with the stuff that we're selling and putting out into the marketplace, which is awesome all by itself, but it's reducing the indemnity of the insurance business. Got to celebrate that on their behalf. But more importantly, Most insurance companies, when they recover that money, they're going to say, hey, we're going to go back to our customer, the customer who suffered the loss, who suffered the damage, and we're going to pay them back. We're going to literally write them a check for the amount of their deductible. We're going to make them whole for a loss that they suffered. And that is such an amazing customer experience that everyone can celebrate. The consumer can celebrate it. The property insurance company can celebrate it. The regulators, the Department of Insurance celebrate it. Consumer advocates celebrate it. We should do more of that.
Absolutely. And by the way, it reminds me of what's going on right now. I maybe some thoughts on this. The large planes, the 747 Maxes, right? If you think about what you're saying, it sounds like you're trying to bring more transparency, more accountability, but also to help the manufacturer. It's not a zero-sum game. One wins, one loses. Yeah, they might have to reimburse the person who paid all the money to the insurance company, but this is going to prevent them from making further mistakes and further liabilities down the road. Same thing with what's going on with these 747 Maxes. Like, people are saying, like, this is some serious stuff. Like what's happening with these things. Now let's report back and let's go back and let's fix these things so people don't get hurt. Now on a plane, it's like life and death, like, right? This kind of thing is, it's serious money, right? And it could also be life and death, right? It could start that fire, or it could fail that, the electric thing. It could be all kinds of stuff. But yeah, it's that urgency and systematizing what you're doing, more like the airline industry. Am I catching it, Lyle?
You're totally catching it. I love the metaphor. Here's a fun one. So there is a brand and model of refrigerator. Now, granted, it's not the most common refrigerator in kitchens across America, but it's certainly out there, and there's plenty of them. And it's got a really heavy door on it. And that door, just like most refrigerators, has shelves on the door. And so you can put things in the shelves. And so depending upon what you put in those shelves, especially if you put things like milk jugs and orange juice containers, right? Things that are heavy, and you put it in that door, if you walk up to that refrigerator and you firmly grasp the handle and you pull really hard on that handle, that entire refrigerator has the risk of overturning on the person who's standing in front of it. That's horrible. That's a known risk for that brand and model number refrigerator. And yet, my hunch is that most people in America who own that refrigerator have no idea at all that thing has the risk of overturning and hurting and or killing the person who's standing in front of it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Gosh. Yeah, exactly. Who would have, you wouldn't know, right? You would just assume that it's just like every other refrigerator that you've had in your whole life. And so, hey, Lyle, we're talking Lyle Donan, and you can go to roomandpillow.com to learn more and to get started on everything he's talking about. And Lyle, so let's shift a little bit. I want to go to, we talk about capital gains taxes and exiting, right? So hopefully people have built up their properties and their assets in a way that de-risks everything and also increases the NOI, and it helps to run the properties even smoother, which increases the NOI. Now they're going to exit, right, Lyle? So I'm curious, and you probably exited yourself, right? What would you say is the biggest frustration when it comes to the 1031 exchange, or selling businesses and having huge capital gains taxes? What have you found to be some of the challenges with some of the some of the ways that people have exited in the past, or the ways that you've exited?
My exits, I look back on every single one of them and kind of do forensics on them, and I don't think I've done one yet that I haven't said, well, I could have done that differently, or I could have done that better. And I would say that the most important advice that I can give to anybody who's doing a significant exit is that it's the caliber of the team that you surround yourself with. So just to be blunt, I'm never going to be as savvy or sophisticated as I hope the lawyer that I have by my side, my CPA that I've got by my side, and the others that are on my deal team as I'm exiting this particular asset. But typically, there's a great deal of time sensitivity and a great deal of pressure, which is a competing interest in diligence and slowing down and getting prepared and getting all your ducks in a row. And so I think that the only advice I can give is twofold. First, the caliber of the advisors that sit to my right and to my left are inherently integral into how I feel about the success of that transaction on the other side of it. And yes, I have gone through transactions and immediately fired people sitting to my left and right. So I've made those mistakes on my own self more than once. The other thing is just that you can't cry over spilled milk. And I don't want to get the detail to be so critically important that I lose sight of the opportunity of the transaction itself. Time is of the essence. The clock is always ticking. There is a pressure to get the deal done. So I want to make sure that good is good enough, but I'm not in search of perfection. And I think that when you do the forensics on the other side, if you answer it with, well, that was an opportunity that I missed, but if I had it to do over again, I wouldn't have stopped the transaction for that opportunity, then the opportunity was still a successful transaction. And I'm not going to get caught up in the miss that perhaps I've identified. On the other hand, if it's that big and I'm really upset about it, and one of these people sitting to my left or right is going to get fired over it, then boy, that's a big takeaway.
Absolutely. No, that's so much wisdom there. I love the way you put that. Right. It's always great to reflect, but it's also great to be you're grateful for everything that has been. Right. It's a great exit. Right. And you can't cry over spilled milk. I like it, but you also take action and say, well, what did we do wrong? And by the way, the same group that helped you to get from 0 to 10 million may not be the same team to take you from 10 to 50 or 50 to 100 to 100 million to a billion. Right. Each level that you're leveling up as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a real estate owner, the team may need to adjust, or you need to add a player to the team, right? I think of like, the Golden State Warriors. You can't have 5 Steph Currys. Well, maybe you could. He might be the one guy you could do that with, right? But you need to have the Draymond Greens, you need to have the Klay Thompsons. You need to have the different players in place to fill the roles to win the championships, and sometimes that means leveling up. I'm curious, have you done 1031 exchanges before, Lyle, or what has been your typical way when you exit assets and how you're deferring capital gains taxes? What's been your strategy?
Yeah, Brett, I have not personally delved into 1031 exchanges, not because I haven't considered it, but because looking at the interest of time, I've been too focused on wherever I'm going next to evaluate that 1031 exchange as something that I'm going to focus on. So just full transparency, I have not done 1031 exchanges.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of our clients haven't either, and that's why they find us, is because that time piece, we call that the shotgun wedding, when essentially they're running around in 45 days to identify, 180 days to close, and sometimes they're even selling businesses or crypto or stock, which are not 1031 eligible. And so we offer something called a deferred sales trust that works for any asset of any kind. And we say it eliminates the need for the 1031 exchange when you don't have to get the time piece against you, right? Time becomes your friend in this strategy where there's no like kind replacement requirement. You can, a business venture can go into a real estate, or real estate into business, or crypto into real estate, all tax deferred, but there's no time pressure, right? You can sit in T-bills while you're waiting. You can sit in hard money lending while you're waiting. And then you can purchase things at optimal timing. And what I also say, optimal entrepreneurial journey, because we're all in different journeys and different stages. And this capital can be used to fund those deals, or to start new companies, or to build that new project. If anyone is curious about how that works, or wants to learn more, you go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Lyle, that being said, are you ready for the lightning round?
I am.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget make sure to tell yourself to do?
Lever up. Don't be afraid to lever up on talent, and do it before you think you need to do it. My past tells me that we wait too late to do that. We should always pay more for the next level of talent before it becomes essential that we have them in our businesses. That will accelerate growth.
Excellent. And question number 2, what's the number 1 book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Servant Leadership.
Is there an author? Do you know?
Let's punt. I'm going to come back to that. You got my head scratching.
Okay, no problem. Next question is this. What are you most curious about right now?
What am I most curious about right now is I'm studying geopolitics. I'm studying where is the world going and why. I'm really starting to be a student of demographics. I think demographics is a prediction of our future. And so as I look at, for example, the conversation of real estate, I'm wanting to study age demographics in the United States, in North America, and abroad. What's happening in China matters to what's happening in the US. How they're aging matters to what's happening in the U.S. It's going to affect their policy. It's going to affect their politics. The same is true here in the United States. And I think more in the last 18 months than any other time in my life, I'm really begin to focus on geopolitics and demographics as a prediction of where I should be placing my own bets.
Absolutely. We couldn't agree with you more, by the way. Some quick stats about why it's so important to build a capital gains tax exit plan with those demographics is there's over $84 trillion that's set to transfer in the next 20 years from one generation to the next. And it's known as the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet. And in fact, there's 77 million baby boomers in the US alone. And every single day, 10,000 are turning 65. And so it's vital that you understand that those things are going to drive decisions and changes. And in fact, 50% of the total net worth in America is tied to high-end primary homes, businesses, private equity, and commercial real estate, all of which are illiquid assets that are highly appreciated. And we think it's like this pressure, that's a perfect storm that's all hitting at once, Lyle. And as it hits, the question becomes where, and the friction is the tax, a death tax and a capital gains tax. And it's like this explosion that's going to happen. And whether people want to have great plans in place to have a capital gains tax and estate tax plan built in order to receive the capital versus building their empires for many, many years, just to see a lot of that capital be paid to the government in tax, which, as we probably all agree, is going to be wasted away no matter what side you vote for. And so this demographics is driving everything. It's literally driving everything. And it's happening right now. Any thoughts on that before we go on to the next question?
No, just that I couldn't agree more. I think it's a tidal wave that's coming, and none of us can do anything to stop that. All you can do is prepare now.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question is this. Favorite leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by? Maybe it was that servant leadership one that you said there, right? Kind of a theme or a quote. Anything that kind of come to mind?
Yeah, I'm going to give you the quote that's right by my office desk sitting right here. And it reads, all non-accelerating observers can lay equal claim to their perspective being the correct one. I'll read it one more time. It's kind of a mouthful, but I think it makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Ready? All non-accelerating observers, which means they're standing still, can lay equal claim to their perspective being the correct one. And the person who made that quote is Albert Einstein in his theory of relativity. And the reason I love that is because, yes, he's referring to physics. If you're staying still, then you can argue, no matter what your perspective is, that it's the correct perspective. But as soon as you start moving in any direction, by definition, the things around you are moving relative to where you are. Some are moving closer to you, some are moving further away, but everything around you is moving because you're moving. And if you're in motion, then your perspective is fundamentally very different all the time. And so it's that I totally celebrate, not only as a story of physics, but as a story of business, as a story of leadership. And I just champion that.
Amazing. And with that, I don't know if we can end it in any better way. Lyle, I want to thank you for being on the show, sharing a ton of wisdom with us, opening us up to another world of thinking about risk and property and insurance and connecting the dots to create and preserve wealth. Wow, that quote itself, you could probably write a whole book on. I hope you do at some point, because that was really neat and insightful and inspiring. And I want to encourage you to keep using your gifts and talents and really connecting deeply with people and helping them care about caring enough to help them get what they care about, right? And essentially, and then blessing people by connecting everyone together to do that and create even a better outcomes for everybody. That being said, for our listeners who want to get in touch with you, Lyle, what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, I think the easiest way, go to roomandpillar.com, reach out, contact us, or just email me directly. My email is very simple, intentionally, Donan, LDONAN, @roomandpillar.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Lyle. And also want to thank our listeners for listening to an episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. We're also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets podcast. So all our commercial real estate people out there, we so appreciate you. We're on YouTube. We're on Apple, iTunes, and anywhere you can consume podcasts, we're there. And so please subscribe and rate and review. We so appreciate that. And remember, not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax referral strategy is an amazing way for you to exit highly appreciated assets so you can create and preserve more wealth. Deferred sales stress is a great way to do that. We'd love the opportunity to show you how how that works and how it can be a fit for you, just go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. And the last piece I'll leave you with is our brand new product that we just released here in 2024. It's called the Best 1031 Exit Plan. It is a full 1031 service and a backup plan in case it fails. Friends don't let friends overpay for a 1031 exchange, and friends don't let friends do a 1031 exchange without a backup plan in case it fails. Don't get caught stuck in 1031 jail with a company that doesn't allow the backup plan for the deferred sales trust. Go to experttaxsecrets.com to get the best 1031 exchange plan started today. Appreciate everyone out there.